All right. Hey, everybody. Dan Fitzpatrick here at stockmarketmentor.com. Just a heads up, if you watch Cramer, you don't need a heads up because you'll see it tomorrow. But if you don't, Jim's going to be featuring some assisted living stocks on tomorrow's show. And so it's just from an idea that I gave him, and members know that I've been talking about this. I've been on this stuff for a while, on and off as the stocks have worked or not worked. So I just thought I'd kind of walk you through this and then definitely watch Cramer's show tomorrow and see how he does. Okay. So the first one I'll be doing three different stocks. And what you need to know about this space, the assisted living or senior housing space, is demographics are really, really, they're one-sided. More and more people are getting old. And as you get into your 80s, that's when as you get into your 80s, that's when the shit hits the fan, so to speak. I'll just tell you. And so that's when more and more people are going into assisted living or managed care. And I can tell you because we've discussed this in our trading room. Some of our members, they have parents or other relatives that are in these homes, and it's costing them like $6,000 or $8,000 a month for to take care of their family members. That's a lot of money. I mean, it's a huge amount of money, and costs have just gone up more and more. And so I'm not talking now about the hardship on people. This is not what we do here. We talk about making money. So why have costs gone up so much? Because the bed counts, not the bed counts, but the units, rooms, relative to the number of people that need them are massively under underwater. Like there's more people coming in than there are beds to fit them. And so, unless maybe they start doing bunk beds or something, that's a real problem. So, because of that, prices go up a lot. Now, here's the thing: some of these companies, like Welltower, for example, they kind of own the ecosystem. In other words, they don't manage the individual facilities, they own them and they build them or they buy them from builders, but they own them. So they kind of own the whole ecosystem. That's where demographics really help these guys, is because they've got hey, unless we start doing the euthanasia or the whatever it is, eugenics that apparently they do in Canada or something like that. No offense to my Canadian friends. I don't know. It's just what I've heard. But unless we start doing this here, like there's more and more people, they're going to need those homes. And so the demographics really, really favor a company like Welltower. Huge demand, limited supply. Hey, man, let's go build so we can make more supply. Great. Then we'll make more money. Meanwhile, just more money. And then there's other companies like the Pennant Group. These are the ones, and then this too, PACS Group. These are the ones that actually operate the facilities. Now, they're sure they've got demographics, fine. Yeah, they're full. I think they've got an occupancy rate, I want to say like 95, 94% or something. They just don't have that many units that aren't used. So the demographics favor them that way because they'll get paid per patient, but also, and more to the point here, AI. Everybody's talking about the AI build out, the hyperscalers. Are they ever going to get their money back? What happens if Meta or Amazon or Google stop spending their $98 billion a month on building out the AI space? Oh, it's a bubble. It's horrible. All the electricity. It just goes on and on and on. And by the way, I'm not going to argue with any of that stuff. There's a lot of issues that you have to wonder about, worry about. Okay, I don't care. Not when I'm looking at this space, because these people, these companies, this space is not depending on some frickin' theory. It's not like, oh, well, if this, then that. Oh, maybe they could do nuclear reactors, the small nuclear reactors to do that. Hey, maybe we could put a nuclear reactor in everybody's house and they can all do their AI there. I don't know. This is what I know. In this space, these companies are already using it. It's not that hard, frankly. Okay, this is not quantum computing here. This is taking care of medication dosage. It's taking care of managing the information around each patient. And did you give the patient his meds? Was it the right amount? What about this? What about that? This is the kind of thing that these assisted living providers, the caregivers, have to spend a lot of time dealing with. Okay, well, AI, that stuff goes away. And what that does is it goes directly to the bottom line for these operators. So now the operators have to spend less on staffing, and they make just as much money as if they had staff do all of this stuff. In fact, it reduces errors, it increases worker satisfaction, because it's kind of a tough space to be in. So it's like all good things are coming now to assisted living. So look at PACS, look at Pennant Group, look at Welltower. Those are the three that we're going to cover. And just real quick, Welltower, breakout to the upside. I think this is going higher. Probably maybe get a little pullback, which would be nice. Okay. And then PAX Group, the daily chart really controls here. You can see where this is a breakout, working really, really well. And then Pennant Group, this is a cup here, just broke out last week. These are the stocks that Cramer is going to be looking at. And now you know what he's going to be talking about tomorrow before he even knows, because I haven't sent him my notes yet. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Look, if you haven't tried Stock Market Mentor, please give it a shot. It's $7 for 14 days. I mean, $7 for 14 days is pretty good. A little anecdotal evidence here, not evidence, but whatever. So I got an email from a member this morning, and he told me, I know the one figure, it's 200,000. I can't remember the other one, but it's seven figures, 1.2, something like that. He said over the last year and a half, just because of his work at Stock Market Mentor, he's turned 200K into over $1 million. And this person is not a super trader. Probably now he is. I think you've qualified, buddy. But this is a person who just does what he's taught, follows the rules, created a process, and it worked for him. And here he is. He's living the dream now. And so I'm inviting you to be a part of this thing. I'm just telling you, like from the bottom of my heart, it's what we do. It's why Andy and Scott and I get up in the morning. It's to help people make money. We're a little different than the typical stock picking website. We have a community. It's not a website. And I want you to be a part of it. All right. I'll see you next time. $7.